Hi everyone, Hugo speaking. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. As you can see, I'm on my own, but don't worry because Thomas will join us later for the Q&A. But we will start immediately with quick case studies, which is more a presentation about a new way to create games. We saw that the previous type of creation we advised you to do were not working anymore. Specifically the model and improve. So we'll do a presentation about a new way to create games, which is called the gamification. Alexander, you can start the presentation. I got new shoes. Okay, so first of all, guys, the model and improve is dead. Just to sum up, the model and improve was the concept to find a hit game on the App Store and to try to improve it. Or find a game that has potential in the App Store and try to improve it by applying the basic guideline of YouTubeable, Snackable, System 1, System 2, etc., etc. You know the basic guidelines now. So here is a chart coming directly from our dashboard that shows the effect of the model and improve, or even sometimes the copycat. Every time we launch a hit game, and specifically a big hit game like Helix Jump, we receive a lot of different copycats. And what we can observe here is really simple, is that there is only one winner. And the one winner is the first comer to this market. The one who decided to innovate, the one who decided to think out of the box, while keeping in mind the basic rules of ultra casual. You can see Helix Jump has a really low CPI, awesome retention metrics, and all the different games that are really close to Helix did not match. Every time we launch a new game, we receive a plenty amount of copycat and model and improve. We ask you to stop doing that and really think on your own. And we have a methodology for that, which is the gamification. Vas-y, tu peux. Okay. So it's a 4-step process. Which is pretty simple like this, but which is quite difficult in reality. So the first step is to find a satisfying mechanic, something satisfying, an experience in your life, a mechanic that you find interesting. We will show you where to find this kind of mechanic. Then you apply it a gameplay. There are a list of gameplay, and you can find endless type of gameplay, and you apply this mechanic to this gameplay. Then you test it with us, with Voodoo, and according to the KPIs, we decide if we kill it, if we launch it, which would be the best case, or simply if we iterate on it. Yeah, you can go next. So, how to find satisfying mechanic? First of all, you need to source them, and then you need to stock them in order to keep them in mind. We found two main sources. It's not really hard to find them. Alexander, if you can go to Imgur. The first one is Imgur, so there are a lot of different GIFs. Vas-y, va un peu plus loin parce que there's the girl. Okay. A lot of different GIFs. Here you can find also some keyword like satisfying or any other type of keyword that you can find in order to identify GIF with classic mechanic, satisfying mechanic. Sorry. The other sources is Instagram. As I told you before in the Start From an Experience video, but also from the studio I'm talking to. Here you can find plenty of accounts on Instagram where you have 3D artists or sometimes even GIF of real experience that shows satisfying experiment. So it's really simple to find satisfying experiment on the web. And what we do at Voodoo internally is basically we stock them on a Google Doc. Alexander, if you can go to the Google Doc. Really easy. You just save the GIF. in order to have a library of satisfying mechanic. And you can see there are a lot of them. So then once you have identified a cool satisfying mechanic that you want to gamify, it's time to choose the gameplay you want to apply to this mechanic. So here is a list of classic basic core gameplays that were proved to be it before. So you have the tap timing mechanic, which is really good because you can add a real contemplative effect to this mechanic. It's really easy to understand for the player what to do. It just has to tap. It's really not involved into the gameplay and into the satisfying experience itself. It just has to look at it. Then you have the falling experience, the one from Helix Jump, which is really awesome because the falling experiment for a player is really good. Rising, .io game is also good. The Swerve, if you can go to the next one, Alexander. We also put the one, personally I don't like them very much. I don't think they are really good in ultra casual, but it's really to show you the idea, guys. The turning, the puzzle, even the grinding experience. But what is really the most important, is to be a trend maker. Think out of the box. This list of gameplay is not exhaustive. You can create new one. You can find new type of gameplays. You can also merge this type of gameplay together, doing a turning puzzle or I don't know, .io falling game. You know, you can mix them together in order to create a new one. Vas-y, next. So then it's time to test the game. And once you get the KPIs, you need to make a decision. You need to know what you can do, what you should do with the game. Kill it, iterate, or simply continue to do it. One KPI that is really important for you to make that decision is the number of new users you get per day, which is equal to the CPI in a way. When you get less than 150 new users per day, it's not a good news. And most of the time you will have to simply kill the prototype and try to work on a new one. Killing the prototype doesn't mean change the total. Killing the prototype means find also a new mechanic of gameplay. You just find an entirely new mechanic of gameplay. You don't even try to make another gameplay. If you have a good retention matrix, so 60 day 1 and 25 day 7, this is really tremendous retention matrix. So then a publishing manager from Voodoo will spot you on the dashboard and contact you and give you feedback to reduce the CPI. Reducing the CPI can be also find another type of gameplay. I'll show you an example on the slide later. I think we can move forward. This board is straightforward. So here is an example with Hall.io. This is really the story of Hall.io in a way. First of all, the game was called just The Hall, and it was something like a puzzle. I don't even know what type of gameplay this is, you know, a little bit timing game, you know. And we saw that the day 1 retention was quite okay, 45%. The day 7 was total shit with 7%. It's really bad. But we had 350 new users per day. So we had a really low CPI on that game. We had the combo of low CPI and interesting day 1. So what it means is that there is something good with this satisfying effect, with the satisfying mechanic of swallowing stuff into a hole. So what the Montpellier team did, basically, they try out some other gameplay. I've put you the final gameplay they did, which is the .io, but they tried a recipe, they tried an idle game, they tried a puzzle game, they tried a runner with a swerve before reaching success and increase the retention with All.io. And when we put it in .io game, when we apply this gameplay to this mechanic, we receive 500 new users per day. So the CPI was even better. C'est tout, je crois. And that's it, guys. This is really the techniques. Go back on live. On y est? Okay, I hope you enjoyed it and it was quite clear. Now Thomas will join me and we will answer your question.
Hey everybody.
Let's go, vas-y, parle-leur un peu parce que là...
Okay. So thanks for all your comments about Hugo's presentation. I saw a couple of people saying, you know, they were a bit shocked by it or you know, it was new information. So yeah, definitely this is, a new way of making games, or we're developing and, refining our way of making games and what we want to teach you guys. We as you know, we're very data driven. We test everything. We make sure that all the information we give you is up to date and is what's working now. So this is really interesting, so that you guys are able to kind of adapt the way you make games and continue to make better games with this technique. So really follow what Hugo says. It's always a good idea.
Yes.
I think we have quite a few questions that I saw.
Yes, let me check.
And also, please, as I mentioned on the chat, don't hesitate to send us questions about, creation techniques, where you can find new ideas, thoughts on the market, all that kind of stuff. That's what we're here for mostly. So we'll be really happy to answer all of those questions. I also saw a lot of questions about how to reduce CPI, how to improve retention. All our videos on the dashboard on these subjects are still very much valid, and we really encourage you to watch them.
Okay, an interesting question from Yaruva, which is basically the balance between 2D and 3D in games. It's a little bit complicated right now to have a good answer, because 3D games are still really successful and really efficient, specifically with the satisfying methodology I just told you about. But we see that also 2D games, specifically the puzzle one with drawing, are doing quite good also in the store. I think basically 3D games are really much better for arcade. It's better to make arcade game in 3D and stick to puzzle for the 2D. This is my opinion. I don't know if it's true or not. I think the future will let us know. But for the moment, when you are doing arcade game, stick with 3D.
Yeah.
Yes.
One question from Chaps Games is, are endless runners good for retention? Currently, we don't recommend that you do an endless runner. We think that level-based games are more efficient in terms of retention, because, as we mentioned, I think a couple of weeks ago, they give small reward very often to the player, and this is much more engaging than just trying to beat your high score, which happens once every 3 days. Also, as Hugo said, the satisfying videos, a lot of them have in common the fact that things align perfectly for the player. You have this one moment where you're clear, you passed all the obstacles, everything is clean, and that's the end of your level, and that's super satisfying both visually and in terms of like gameplay reward. So level-based runners are a lot more efficient for retention, we think.
Yeah. Don't worry. Who is that? Irisoft. We'll put back this presentation, and this live stream will be back on the dashboard right after that. So don't worry about that. What if puzzle retention is good but CPI not? This is a really good question, actually. In that case, a publishing manager will contact you, and we will figure out a way to reduce the CPI. It can be a problem of satisfying sexiness of your puzzle game. Maybe work a little bit on the animation, try to find a way to make the game more sticky and more appealing, The videos, the satisfying videos, it's really not, I'm not kidding guys, it's really reducing the CPI to have satisfying effect. So really, keep working on your core gameplay. It's important to have a gameplay that has huge retention. If it's already the case, it's good. A publishing manager will contact you, and then you will find together a way to reduce the CPI by adding animation and satisfying effect to the game.
Yeah. One thing that works really well for CPI also is the clarity, explaining the gameplay a lot. We see quite a few prototypes where the gameplay is really good, but there are no visual indications of what the objects do, how they interact. So really working on that, it's both YouTubeability and interactivity, and also telling a small story works really well at the moment. So we really encourage you to check out our videos on that as well. Telling a small story, has really helped us also reduce CPI on games.
Yeah. One thing really important, guys, also that we saw a really big trend is anthropomorphism in a way. So basically, it's put human emotion into your game, like emojis, or it's also linked with the tell a small stories. For example, on a leveling system game, like a runner, the more you will reach the line, the arrival line, you can have like an emotion at the background with a smiling face that smile more and more once you reach the end line. Something like this, really put human emotion on your game, so that people that watch the videos, they can rely, they see, they have a human interaction, so it increases the CPI and the conversion rate, basically.
Just a quick question on trends by Spooky Mackie. Thanks for asking. So the question is it possible that people are getting irritated from the endless and level games? So I'm guessing you mean also arcade games, and want games that require thinking. For now, we're not seeing any evidence on the market and in the stats that we're seeing in the games that we test that more System 2 games have better CPI. We're still seeing that the most mass market games are the arcade games. However, you can also work on types of games that have a bit more depth, a tiny bit more complexity to them maybe, but really games that require people to think. This is one of a must-have guidelines. If a game is System 2, it's not going to be mass market because that's just not what people want in a ultra-casual mobile game. They play it for 5 minutes at a time in the metro. They don't want to solve an enigma or to kind of have a really hard puzzle that hurts their brain. They want something simple and sweet and rewarding.
Yeah, but I think you're right. They might want to think just a little bit more, just a little bit, and having more pause in their game, time to think. Maybe not thinking, maybe not thinking too much,
bit more complexity,
but more time to think in the game. Like in Thank You can take your time.
That's true. You don't think a lot, but you can take your time.
Yeah. Or even game like Love Balls that were quite successful. Yeah. Also, in this type of game, you have the time. You can do whatever you want. You have the time. But they don't like complexity. It does not increase retention for sure.
I think the fact of having a hard time playing a game really irritates people, and you're probably going to get low retention as well.
Yeah. Daniel Gerlich. Hey Daniel.
Hey Daniel.
Hey guys, what do we do when we have a game with a really nice CPI, but even after some iteration, we can't reach the retention goal? Daniel, I think you need to simply keep the satisfying effect of your game. So just like in what we did in old.io, and just change the gameplay. Try out another gameplay. If it was a runner, try to make it .io game. If it was a .io game, try to make it, I don't know, aim game or a rising game. You do a disruptive iteration. Like really, you say, okay, I just take one element of my game. Sometimes it's a guess to guess what is the core element of your game, the core satisfying element of your game, and you put it in another gameplay.
Yep. This is how, if you see the presentation, this is really what we did to make whole.io gain a lot of retention. We changed the gameplay, kept the satisfaction.
Really good question from Sachin.
Yeah, gameplay versus colors versus animation effects. Which one has the most impact on CPI? Super important question as well. It's a really important thing that we work on. From what we've seen, gameplay is really the most important thing that you can have in your game, both for retention and CPI. And the best way to have a low CPI is not just to have a great gameplay, it's to have an innovative gameplay also. Something that's satisfying, but that's also new for the player, that will attract their attention. With Hugo, we always say that the CPI is how sexy your game is. The game's not going to be sexy if the people have seen it a million times before on the App Store. The best way to get a low CPI, be satisfying, be innovative in your gameplay, not in your animations, not in your art style, even though those have to be clean, but don't spend time on them, spend time on the gameplay.
Yes. Thank you very much, guys. That's it for the live stream. It was a real pleasure to have you today.
As always.
This live stream was just to repeat, the main goal of this live stream is to really be innovative, be creative. This is really what matters, and be innovative and creative in finding new gameplays. Okay. Thank you very much, guys.
Bye, guys.